Alright, this goes into the Tao of Jeet by Bruce Lee. This is going to be part 3 of the Jeet Kune series. I'm going to read the introduction written by Linda Lee. This part of the book, there's no page number associated with it at the moment. We're still at the beginning phases of the book. It says, my husband Bruce always considered himself a martial artist first and an actor second. At the age of 13, Bruce started lessons in the Wing Chun style of Kung Fu for the purpose of self-defense. Over the next 19 years, he transformed his knowledge into a science, an art, a philosophy, and a way of life. He trained his body through exercise and practice. He trained his mind through reading and reflecting, and he recorded his thoughts and ideas constantly over the 19 years. The pages of this book represent the pride of a life's work. In his lifelong quest for self-knowledge and personal expression, Bruce was constantly studying, analyzing, and modifying all available relative information. His principal source was his personal library, which consisted of over 2,000 books dealing with all forms of physical conditioning, martial arts, fighting techniques, defenses, and related subjects. In 1970, Bruce sustained a rather severe injury to his back. His doctors ordered him to discontinue the practice of martial arts and to remain in bed to allow his back to heal. This was probably the most trying and dispiriting time in Bruce's life. He stayed in bed, virtually flat on his back for 6 months, but he couldn't keep his mind from working, the result of which is this book. The bulk of these writings was done at that time, but many scattered notes were recorded at earlier and later times. Bruce's personal study notes reveal that he was particularly impressed by the writings of Edwin Hazlitt, Julio Martinez Costello, Hugo and James Costello, and Roger Crosnier. Many of Bruce's own theories are directly related to those expressed by these writers. Bruce had decided to finish the book in 1971, but his film work kept him from completing it. He also vacillated about the advisability of publishing his book work before he felt it might be used for wrong purposes. He did not intend it to be a how-to book or a Learn Kung Fu in 10 Easy Lessons book. He intended it as a record of one's man's way of thinking and as a guide, not a set of instructions. If you can read it in this light, there is much to be aware of on these pages, and you probably will have many questions, the answers to which you must seek within yourself. When you have finished this book, you will know Bruce Lee better, but hopefully you will also know yourself better. Now open your mind and read, understand, and experience, and when you've reached that point, discard this book. The pages are best used for cleaning up a mess, as you will see. Linda Lee. Do you have any reflection on that introduction alone? Okay. Next part. In the hands of a singular man, simple things carefully placed ring with an undeniable harmony. Bruce's orchestration of martial arts had that quality, most apparent in his combat motion. Immobilized for several months with an injured back, he picked up a pen. There too he wrote as he spoke, as he moved, with directness and with honesty. Like listening to a musical composition, understanding the elements within it adds a specialness to the sound. For this reason, Linda Lee and I are liberalizing the introduction of Bruce's book to explain how it came about. The Tao of Jeet Kune actually began before Bruce was born. The classical Wing Chun style that started him on his way was developed 400 years before his time. The 2,000 or so books he owned and the countless books he read describe the individual discoveries of thousands of men before him. There's nothing new within this book. There are no secrets. It's nothing special, Bruce used to say, and so it wasn't. Bruce's special key was knowing himself and his own capabilities to correctly choose things that work for him and to convey those things in movement and in language. He found in the philosophies of Confucius, Spinoza, Krishnamurti, and others an organization for his concepts, and with that organization he began the book of his Tao. The book, when he died, was only partially completed. Though it spanned 7 volumes, it filled only 1. Between major blocks of copy were unnumbered pages of unused paper, each headed by simple titles. Sometimes he wrote introspectively, asking questions of himself. More often he wrote to his invisible student, the reader. When he wrote quickly, he sacrificed his practiced grammar, and when he took his time, he was eloquent. Some of the material within the volumes was written in a single setting and had the natural progression of a well-outlined conversation. Other areas were sudden inspirations and incomplete ideas that were quickly scribbled as they entered Bruce's head. These were scattered throughout the work. In addition to the 7 hardbound volumes, Bruce wrote notes throughout the development of his Jeet Kune Do and left them in stacks and drawers among his belongings. Some were outdated and others were more recent and still valuable to his book. With the help of his wife Linda, I collected and scanned through, indexed all the material. Then I tried to draw the scattered ideas together into cohesive blocks. Most of the copy was left unchanged, and the drawings and the sketches are his own. The book's organization, however, could not have been justly done were it not for the patient attention of Danny and Sano, his assistant instructors and class of senior students. It was they who took my 8 years of martial arts training, threw it out on the floor, and turned the theories into action with their knowledge. They have my gratitude both as the editor of this book and separately as a martial artist. It should be mentioned that the Tao of Jeet Kune Do is not complete. Bruce's art was changing every day. Within the 5 ways of attack, for instance, he originally began with a category called hand immobilization. Later he found that too limiting, since immobilizations could be applied to the legs and arms and head as well. It was a simple observation that showed the limits of attaching labels to any concept. Tao of Jeet Kune Do has no real ending. It serves instead as a beginning. It has no style, it has no level, though it's most easily read by those who understand their weapons. To probably every statement within the book, there is an exception. No book could give a total picture of the combat arts. This is simply a work that describes the direction of Bruce's studies. The investigations are left undone. The questions, some elementary and some complex, are left unanswered to make the student question for himself. Likewise, the drawings are often unexplained and many offer only vague impressions. But if they spark a question, if they raise an idea, they serve a purpose. Hopefully this book will be used as a source of ideas for all martial artists, ideas that should then develop further. Inevitably and regrettably, the book may also cause a rash of Jeet Kune Do schools headed by people who know the reputation of the name and very little about the movement. Beware of such schools. If their instructors miss the last, most important line, chances are they fail to understand the book at all. Even the organization of the book means nothing. There are no real lines between speed and power, or between precision and kicking, or hand strikes and range. Each element of combat movement affects those around it. The divisions I've made are only for convenient reading. Don't take them too seriously. Use a pencil as you read and cross-reference the related areas you find. Jeet Kune Do, you see, has no definite lines or boundaries, only those you make yourself. Gilbert L. Johnson. Any thoughts on what I read in that? Okay. One thing I just want to quickly mention is he even mentions this book may cause a rash of Jeet Kune Do schools headed by people who know the reputation of the name and very little about the movement. Beware of such schools. If their instructors miss the last most important line, chances are they fail to understand the book at all. I think that's very important. I really don't feel that anybody could teach Jeet Kune Do except for Bruce Lee himself. And this is a book that was written by Bruce Lee. It's titled Jeet Kune Do. And this is the only Jeet Kune Do, like Bruce's work, I feel. You know, and anybody that studies his work, they're just trying to understand themselves more. Try to figure out the truth within themselves. I really do not feel anybody has the ability to pass on Jeet Kune Do in its entirety except for Bruce Lee. You know, just wanted to stay with that.